My name is Ellie, I'm 28 years old, and I work as a graphic designer at a mid-sized marketing agency in Portland. I live a pretty simple life, coffee in the morning, yoga after work, and late-night Pinterest scrolling. But I also happen to be the kind of person who loves making others feel special. Especially my best friend, Tara. Tara and I have been inseparable since college. We met in a freshman English class when she borrowed my highlighter and never gave it back. Over time, that tiny theft turned into a lifelong friendship. She's bold, loud, and fiercely ambitious. I'm more quiet, thoughtful, and sentimental. We balance each other out like yin and yang. Last month, Tara got promoted to senior project manager at her tech company. It was huge. She'd been gunning for that role for over a year, staying late at work, taking on impossible deadlines, and somehow still finding time to listen to my dating disasters. When she called to tell me the news, she tried to play it cool, but I could hear the excitement in her voice. I got it, Elle, she said, trying to sound casual. Senior PM. Tara. That's amazing. We have to celebrate. It's not that big of a deal, she said, laughing. Just a title. But I knew better. This was huge. So, I started planning something. Not just a toast or a coffee meetup. I wanted to give her a night she'd remember forever. I spent the next 2 weeks crafting the perfect surprise dinner party. I booked a cozy private room at our favorite Italian restaurant downtown. I created a custom invitation with her face photoshopped on Rosie the Riveter. I invited all her favorite people, coworkers, college friends, even her cousin from Seattle. I coordinated everyone's schedules, arranged a group gift, and made a slideshow of her journey over the years. It was a labor of love. I even got her boss to record a short video message saying how valuable she was to the company. On the night of the dinner, I arrived early to make sure everything was perfect. The candles flickered just right, the wine was chilling, and the slideshow was queued up. People started trickling in, buzzing with excitement. We waited behind the door, lights dimmed, ready to yell, surprise. And when Tara walked in, she looked stunned. Everyone erupted in cheers, clapping and shouting her name. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. I rushed over, hugged her, and said, "You deserve this. Every bit of it." She pulled back and said softly, "Elle, it's not that big of a deal." I laughed it off, assuming she was overwhelmed. We sat down to eat. People gave short toasts. Her cousin shared a funny story from childhood. Her coworker talked about her leadership. I watched her smile politely, nod, and sip her wine. Something felt off. She wasn't glowing. She wasn't proud. After dinner, while people mingled and took pictures, I found her by the dessert table. "Are you okay?" I asked. She sighed. I didn't want a big thing. This feels performative." "Performative? Tara, this is your moment. We're celebrating you." She shrugged. "I get that. But I didn't ask for it. And it's just a job title. Nothing's changed." I blinked. My heart sank a little. I looked around at the people who had come just for her, the decorations, the effort. "I just thought you'd be happy," I said. She gave me a half smile. "I appreciate the thought, Elle, really. But I just don't think it was necessary." That night, I went home feeling hollow. I had poured myself into making something beautiful for her, something meaningful. And she had called it unnecessary. I didn't sleep much. Just lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering why it hurt so much. The next day, my phone buzzed with texts from guests saying how lovely the night was. But nothing from Tara, nothing at all, and that was when I realized, maybe the dinner wasn't about the title. Maybe it was about how I saw her, how much I admired her. Maybe it was my way of saying, "Look at you. Look how far you've come." But she didn't see it that way. She saw a show. A fuss. A performance, and for the first time in years, I started to wonder if we were still on the same page about what friendship meant. That was the night something shifted between us, and I wasn't sure we'd ever go back. 3 days passed, and the silence between us stretched like a taut wire. I kept glancing at my phone, half expecting a text from Tara. Something simple. A thank you. Sorry I was weird. Anything. But it never came. On the 4th morning, I caved. I typed out a message. "Hey, just wanted to check in. Hope you're doing okay." I hit send. She read it almost instantly. No reply. It felt like a slap. I tried to stay rational. Maybe she was just swamped at work. Maybe she didn't know what to say. But my gut said otherwise. That gut feeling grew louder when I saw her Instagram story that evening. She was at a rooftop bar, surrounded by coworkers, laughing with a drink in hand. Someone had tagged her, celebrating our girl. Celebrating her promotion, the same promotion I had thrown an entire party for. The same one she had told me wasn't that big of a deal. I closed the app and tossed my phone on the couch. The ache in my chest didn't go away. I stared at the ceiling for a long time, wondering when we had become this distant, polite, almost strangers. The next morning, I forced myself through my usual routine. Coffee, yoga, check emails. But I couldn't shake the fog. I kept replaying everything, the candles, the speeches, her eyes at the dinner table. And then, her words, "I just don't think it was necessary." Maybe I had overdone it. Maybe I had projected my feelings onto her moment. But wasn't that what friends did? Weren't we supposed to be proud of each other, even when we didn't ask for it? That afternoon, Anna called. She was one of the guests at the dinner. "You okay?" she asked. "Not really," I admitted. "I haven't heard from her. At all." "That's messed up, Elle. The night was beautiful. You did all that for her." "I think she didn't want the attention. Or maybe she didn't want it from you," Anna said bluntly. Ouch. But I needed the truth. Not sugarcoating. That weekend, fate intervened. I ran into Tara at the local bookstore. She was in the nonfiction aisle, skimming a memoir. She looked up, and for a split second, her face flickered with guilt. "Hey," I said, cautious. "Oh. Hey." We stood there for a moment. The kind of moment that used to be filled with laughter. Now, it felt like walking a tightrope. "I wanted to say sorry," I began. "If the dinner was too much. I really thought you'd like it." She sighed. "I know you meant well. And it was nice. But it just didn't feel like me." "You could have said something." "I didn't know how. I didn't want to hurt your feelings." "Too late for that." I nodded. "It's just. I put my heart into that night. Not for the title, but for you. To show you how much you mean to us." "I get it." "I do," she said. "But sometimes it feels like you're trying to write a story about me instead of listening to mine." That cut deep. Because maybe she was right. "I guess I didn't realize how far apart we've grown," I said. "Yeah," she said quietly. "Me neither." We stood there, surrounded by shelves of words, yet unable to find our own. I wanted to reach for her, to rewind us back to simpler days. But something had shifted. And it wasn't going to shift back just because I wanted it to. I left without buying anything. As I walked home, I felt like I had just stepped out of a dream I didn't want to end. A dream where our friendship was still whole. That night, I took down the photos from the dinner. The group shot, the laughing selfie, the one where Tara was blowing out the candle on her tiramisu. I put them in a drawer, out of sight. Not quite out of mind. The text stopped coming. The inside jokes faded. We still liked each other's posts. Still sent happy birthday messages. But it was never the same, and as the days passed, I realized something. Sometimes the hardest part of losing someone isn't the final goodbye. It's the slow unraveling. The way silence replaces conversation. The way politeness replaces laughter. That was the true heartbreak. I didn't lose her all at once. I lost her piece by piece, and she never even noticed. The weeks turned into a month. Then two. By then, the absence had cemented itself. I stopped checking my phone expecting a message from her. I stopped rehearsing possible conversations in the shower. But her ghost lingered in the smallest moments, like the time I passed the brunch spot we used to love, and my feet slowed involuntarily. Or when I saw a TikTok of two best friends dancing together, and I had to scroll away fast before the tears started. I didn't talk about her to anyone anymore. Anna had stopped bringing her up too. People could sense the shift, like a room that once buzzed with music now left silent. Then one evening, I got a text from Tara. "Hey, I'm moving next month. Got a new job in San Diego. Would love to grab coffee before I go." I stared at the screen. Not anger, not joy, just a strange, flat numbness. A part of me wanted to say yes. To see her face again. To ask all the questions. To cry, maybe. Or laugh like we used to. But another part whispered, "For what, still?" I typed back, "Sure." When? We met at a small cafe near her old apartment. I was there first. Of course I was. Some things never change. I wore the green cardigan she always said brought out my eyes. Maybe I still wanted her to notice. Or maybe I wanted to feel like myself again, the version of me who still believed in us. She walked in, looking radiant as ever, confident, collected. She ordered a chai latte. "We Saturday. So? San Diego," I said, offering a polite smile. "Yeah. Big move. Scary, but exciting. Congrats." "Thanks." We sipped in silence. The elephant between us was heavy. I broke it first. "You really didn't think the dinner mattered, did you?" She blinked, then looked down. I didn't know how to say thank you without also saying I felt overwhelmed by it. And I didn't want to fake it. "You didn't have to fake anything, Tara. Just acknowledge that I tried. That I cared." She nodded slowly. "I know. And I'm sorry. I didn't handle it right. I should have been more gentle." The apology felt real. But it didn't erase the ache. "I guess I kept hoping you'd see it from my side. That maybe you'd reach out." I was waiting for you to reach out, she admitted. I didn't know if you were mad. Or done with me. I was hurt. Still am. You disappeared. She looked at me. Then, really looked. I didn't mean to. But I think, part of me was already letting go. Even before the dinner. My throat tightened. Why? Because we grew different. You still love tradition, planning, big gestures. I started craving quiet. Simplicity. Less noise. I took a deep breath. But I was always trying to meet you where you were. I just wanted to show up for you. She nodded again, eyes glistening. And I took that for granted. I think. I got so caught up in trying to prove myself in my career that I forgot to show up for you too. We sat there, staring at the table between us like it held all the answers. I'm not angry anymore, I said. But I don't think I can go back either. I get that. It's weird, isn't it? How some friendships don't end in flames. Just in quiet. Yeah. Quiet is louder than we think. There was a moment where neither of us spoke. Just the soft hum of the espresso machine and the clinking of mugs around us. I remembered all the times we had sat just like this, laughing over spilled tea, debating over books, or planning trips we never took. Remember our Seattle list? I asked suddenly. The one we made sophomore year? She smiled faintly. I think about it sometimes. All those little dreams. A bookstore crawl. Rainy park picnics. We only ever did 2 of them. Life got in the way. Or. We did. We finished our drinks. She hugged me goodbye, longer than expected, tight like a full-circle moment. It wasn't the kind of hug that fixed things. It was the kind that said, I still love you, but I have to go. As she turned to leave, she paused at the door. You were always a good friend, Ellie. Maybe the best. And then she was gone. I sat there a while longer, letting her words settle. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. It was just stillness. A new kind of acceptance. On the way home, I passed by a bookstore. Without thinking, I went in. Picked up a book she once recommended but I never read. I bought it. Just because, that night, I read the first chapter with a blanket over my legs and tea by my side. It didn't fix the ache. But it softened the edges. We had loved each other the best we knew how, until we didn't anymore, and that, I guess, was okay. In the days after that coffee, I found myself unusually still. I wasn't replaying our conversation the way I thought I would. I wasn't agonizing over every word. It had happened, and somehow, that was enough. Closure, or something close to it. I took long walks. Journaled. Caught up on work I had neglected. But most of all, I began noticing just how much space Tara used to occupy in my life. How I filled silences with her voice in my mind. How every decision, from what series to watch to which brand of hummus to buy, once included her input. Now, it was just me. One Sunday morning, I sat in my apartment with sunlight stretching across the kitchen tiles and realized I hadn't spoken out loud to anyone all weekend. I wasn't sad about it. Just aware. The quiet didn't sting like it used to. It was neutral. Gentle. I started texting Anna more. We met for brunch and walked the city. She'd always been there, steady and kind, even when I was distracted by the gravity of my friendship with Tara. I told her everything, the coffee meet up, the goodbye, the hug. Anna listened and said, it's strange, isn't it? How some people leave but their absence teaches you something about yourself. She was right. Tara's absence had forced me to sit with who I was without her. I learned that I was capable of letting go. Of holding memories without clinging. Of loving without needing to be loved back in the same way. I even went back to that Italian restaurant. Alone. I asked for the same private room, just to see it again, not as a stage of disappointment, but as a place I had tried to express love. The hostess gave me a puzzled look but allowed it. I sat at the long table and imagined the lights, the laughter. I let myself smile at it this time. That night, I wrote a letter I never sent. To Tara, dear T, you were my person for a long time. And I think you always will be, in a way. I don't regret the dinner. I don't regret the years. I hope San Diego gives you something Portland never could. I hope you laugh the way you used to. And I hope you remember us with softness. Because I do love, L. I folded it and slipped it into my journal. A few weeks later, I received a package. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Inside was a paperback novel we used to talk about but never got around to reading. A sticky note was stuck inside. Figured it's finally time you read this. Hope it still makes you cry. T. I did cry, but not out of sadness, more like gratitude. Gratitude for the chapter we had. Gratitude for the ending that wasn't dramatic, just real. And gratitude for whatever came next, friendships old and new, moments big and small, dinners that didn't need to be surprises to matter. The book sat on my nightstand for weeks after I finished it. I couldn't bring myself to shelve it. It felt like a living thing. A small relic from a friendship that no longer was but also hadn't completely vanished. Some nights, I'd catch myself flipping through the pages, looking for the underlined sentences Tara might have marked. There were none, but I imagined them anyway, and in those moments, I felt her presence not as a wound, but as a gentle echo. I also started attending a local book club. Something I always said I'd do but never did. At first, I was nervous. New faces, new rhythms. But they welcomed me. I even made a new friend, Clara, a quiet soul with sharp wit and a shared love for chai. One evening, after a book discussion ran long, Clara walked with me to the bus stop. We talked about endings, of stories, of people, of phases in life. I think some people are meant to teach us things and then fade, she said. Yeah, I replied. And some leave something behind to hold on to. Even if it's just a book. Clara smiled. That's not nothing. No, it wasn't. Spring arrived quietly in Portland. The cherry blossoms bloomed early that year. I walked under them one afternoon, letting petals stick to my hair and sweater. I didn't rush. I didn't feel like I was missing anything anymore. Tara was a part of my story. A loud, beautiful, complicated chapter. And like any good chapter, it had an end, but the story? Mine. Still unfolding. Spring turned to summer, and Portland burst into color. The farmers' markets filled with wildflowers, fresh berries, and strangers in floppy hats. I started walking every morning before work, just to feel the air. One Saturday, I wandered into a craft fair on Hawthorne, the kind of thing Tara would have hated, too many people, too much pastel. But I stayed. I bought a handmade mug. I watched a girl sing acoustic covers under a tree. And that's where I met Clara again. She was carrying a tote bag with a watercolor fox on it and sipping lavender lemonade. She looked surprised to see me but smiled right away. You're becoming a regular at these, she said, trying to be, I replied. You? I live 2 blocks away. I come for the soap and the soft pretzels. We walked the booths together. Talked about everything and nothing. She was easy to be around. We ended up sitting on the curb, our legs stretched into the sun. Can I ask you something? She said, poking at her cup with a straw. Sure. You write, right? I blinked. A little. Why? You have that energy. Like someone who watches more than they speak. That was the first time anyone had ever named it. And she was right. That night, I opened my journal and wrote about the market. The girl singing. The mug. Clara. Words flowed easily. It felt good. She texted me the next morning, found a bookstore with a hidden cafe. You need to see it. We met that afternoon. The bookstore was narrow and tall, with a spiral staircase and mismatched rugs. The cafe served espresso in tiny ceramic cups. We stayed for hours. Over the weeks, Clara became my new rhythm. Not a replacement, just something entirely different. She didn't fill the Tara-shaped gap. She carved a new space. She asked about my dreams. About my art. She listened like it was the most interesting thing in the world. One evening, I told her about the dinner. All of it. She didn't flinch. She didn't know how to receive it, Clara said gently. Some people freeze. When faced with love that's bigger than they believe they deserve. I stared at her. You think that's what it was? I think you gave her something sacred, and she didn't know how to hold it. That thought stayed with me, because I realized I'd been carrying so much blame, wondering what I did wrong. But maybe love, when it's too bright, can make people squint. Fall came. The air turned crisp. I hosted my first dinner in months. It was small. Just Anna, Clara, and 2 friends from work. No slideshow. No speeches. Just soup, bread, music. Laughter, and it was enough. Clara brought a sunflower in a mason jar. For your window, she said. That night, after everyone left, I stood in the kitchen, rinsing dishes and humming. I looked at the flower and thought, this is what joy looks like now. Soft. Quiet. Steady. Tara hadn't texted in months. I no longer checked. But I did think of her sometimes. In scents, in songs, in the way certain evenings felt. I didn't resent her. I didn't need her either. I had finally learned how to sit with what was, and make something new from it. There's something sacred about a sunrise. It doesn't demand your attention like a sunset does. It waits quietly. Patiently. And if you're not looking for it, you might miss the moment the sky shifts from black to indigo to blush. I started waking up early, earlier than necessary. I'd sit on my fire escape with a cup of tea and a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, watching the city stretch and yawn beneath the slow bloom of morning light. It was in those quiet hours that I began writing again. Not just journaling, but actual writing. Stories. Scenes. Little fragments of thought that had nowhere to go until now. At first, they were small. A paragraph. A conversation. A memory reframed. One morning, I wrote a short story about a woman who throws a surprise party for her best friend, only for the friend to hate it. I changed the ending. This time, they talked. This time, they healed. It wasn't about rewriting the past. It was about letting my imagination build the piece. My heart had already made, the story found its way into a local zine. A month later, someone emailed me about it. I didn't know anyone else had felt this, they wrote. Thank you. And just like that, my grief had found a second life. As connection, Clara read all my stories. She never offered critique. Unless I asked. She just said, more people need your words. That encouragement was enough to make me submit to another publication. And another, eventually, a tiny press reached out asking if I'd like to compile a collection. I said yes. Not because I wanted to be known. But because I finally felt like I had something worth sharing. On the day the proof copies arrived, I held the book in my hands and cried. Not the ugly, heaving kind of crying. Just soft tears, quiet, like the sunrise. Each page was a thread of me I'd stitched back together. That evening, Clara came over with a bottle of wine and a lemon cake. We danced barefoot in my kitchen. To old soul music, laughing like girls who didn't know heartbreak. I'm proud of you, she said, handing me a slice. I'm proud of me too, I said. And I meant it. Later, as we sat by the window, watching the last streaks of daylight fade, I whispered, I never thought I'd feel this whole again. She leaned her head on my shoulder. That's the thing about healing, it sneaks up on you. We stayed there, saying nothing else. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full of everything we didn't need to say. Tara never replied to my last message. I don't think she will. And that's okay, some goodbyes don't echo. They just close, soft as a turning page. I keep the photo of us from college on my desk. Not out of longing, but gratitude. We were real. We mattered. And we ended, but endings make room, and I am surrounded by beginnings. I started teaching a weekly writing workshop at the community center. It wasn't fancy, just folding chairs, mismatched pens, and stories that needed to be heard. People showed up. Some shy, some eager, all of them carrying fragments of themselves they wanted to make sense of. We wrote about love and grief, about healing and hope. We laughed. We cried. We became something like a family, stitched together by words. Point 1. Evening after class, a young woman approached me. Your story about the party, she said. That was mine, too. I lost someone. I tried to do something special, and they didn't get it. I thought it meant I didn't matter. You do, I said. You always did. She smiled, eyes shining. Thank you. And in that moment, I understood something. Pain doesn't vanish. But it transforms. It becomes purpose. Connection. Legacy. On the 1-year anniversary of the dinner, I lit a candle. Not in mourning, but in memory. I played the playlist I had made for that night. I allowed myself to feel everything, joy, loss, tenderness, peace. I didn't cry. Instead, I wrote a poem. Simple. Soft. Honest. We built something beautiful. And when it cracked, we didn't shatter. We changed. And now, we bloom elsewhere. The next morning, I took a long walk through the park near my apartment, notebook in hand. The world was quiet, golden. Every corner, every breeze felt alive. With potential. I sat on a bench and wrote another letter, not to Tara, not to Clara, but to the girl I used to be. Dear me, thank you for holding on when it hurt. Thank you for believing in beauty, even when things fell apart. Thank you for not closing your heart. You didn't fail. You felt. And feeling deeply is a form of courage. I tucked the letter inside my notebook. That night, I hosted a small gathering at the community center. We called it Stories and Light. We shared things we'd written that brought us peace. Clara read a short piece about resilience. Anna, surprisingly, shared a haiku. And I read my poem from the anniversary. When I finished, there was silence. The good kind. The kind that says, we felt that too. People clapped. Clara squeezed my hand. And I knew, without doubt, that I had turned something painful into something beautiful. This is where the story ends, not with a reunion, not with a grand gesture, but with a quiet certainty that I am whole, that love doesn't always stay, but it always shapes us, that I am exactly where I need to be.
Do you enjoy stories with emotion and twists? Then like, subscribe, and activate the bell. Here, every word touches you.